Hi, this is Jeff Blauette, technical agronomist with Cooperative Farmers Elevator. And on this week's Field Friday segment, I thought we'd talk about something to kind of stack on top of last week's segment. We talked about the stresses the corn is going through with this hot, dry weather and the nutrient deficiencies and some of the things that that's exhibiting. We've got some things showing up in soybeans, maybe a little different look, but there's a lot of it starting to show up now, and I thought we'd talk about that a minute. We've got an awful lot of soybeans reaction to stress is an awful lot of physical symptoms. We've got some of these beans here that are starting to exhibit some of this, the cupping that we're kind of accustomed to with the growth regulators, the dicambas, the 2,4-Ds, starting to show up on these beans. I've got a couple of pictures here. Any stress that stacks on top of these beans, it will show that stress quicker. You can see where they have a little extra residue. Those soybeans cupped quicker. This is 5 feet away. Where there isn't residue, those beans had less stress on them, and they're actually, still showing some cupping, but not nearly as much, and they're growing better. There's a lot of things that can cause cupping. Soybeans reaction to just hot and dry weather, which we've had, the winds we've had, of course, with that heat, just drought stress. Obviously herbicide drift, contamination, all those things are a factor too, but I would dare to bet there's an awful lot of fields. This is one that has not had herbicide applied to it, and there's no fields around it that have had any growth regulators sprayed on it, but there's still cupped beans here. This is a little bit lighter soil, so the stress is definitely showing up here. We've had some cupping from these new trifoliates, so we got to think about how a soybean plant develops. The stress that those trifoliates went through actually was 5 to 10 days ago. The development of those trifoliates was inhibited, and that stress shows up as those trifoliates trying to emerge. So the trifoliates maybe every 5 to 7 days, probably 5 days with the heat unit accumulation we've had. And so the stress that happened was before that. That's why I think now we're going to see more trifoliates coming out with some damage because we've been through this stress and it hasn't stopped yet. We can get a bunch of rain tonight and cool down to the 70s tonight. I think we're still going to see some of those new trifoliates come out yet with some curling on them, and they're going to have to grow through that. We've seen it before. We've seen it quite a few times. It usually doesn't cause any damage. It looks a little squirrely, but it doesn't hurt the yields on these beans. They'll grow through it just fine. You can actually see out here even there's a couple of flowers showing up on the beans. That's a little bit of another reaction to stress. They'll flower earlier. We did plant earlier, which also will make them flower early, but that and the stress, we've got, kind of mid-June and we're seeing flowers already. So just wanted to point a few of those things out. We've also got some of this kind of some drawstring puckering of leaves as well. It looks a little different. I've got a picture here of that. That's maybe some uptake of some of the long chain fatty acid herbicides, kind of like the Duals, the Outlooks, the Warrants of the world. Not going to cause any problems, but it does look a little bit different. We also have some speckled leaves, a little bit of burnt leaves on some of these. We haven't sprayed any burners on some of these, but here's an example of probably some soil uptake of the soil applied PPO chemistries like an Authority or a Valor. Soil applied, taking those up through the roots, shows up as a little bit of speckling. Not going to cause any damage, but they can also take that healthy bean plant look away a little bit. So just wanted to point out some of these things that are going on with soybeans. We don't want to be pointing fingers at somebody else and neighbors, because sometimes that's just what these beans are doing. It has nothing to do with anybody but Mother Nature, and we can all point the finger at her, but we know about how much good that really does. So just wanted to bring that up, talk about it a little bit so we have some understanding of what's going on out in the field. So with that, that's this week's Field Friday segment, and we'll see you next week.